History of Teacher Training. Katie, Nicholas, Kate, and Marije. In the colonial period, the only requirements to become a teacher was that they had to have a variety of knowledge and willingness to work at little or no income. Since there were not any so-called trainings to become a teacher, other qualities that were asked for a teacher to possess would be to provide a good environment and to keep discipline to boys. In the 1800s, the demand for public schools increased, and there were not enough male school teachers to teach all the students. Officials were then forced to hire women to work outside the home and become teachers. Training consisted of ways to maintain discipline in the classroom without violence and care for up to 60 children in a one-room schoolhouse. Being hired based upon their affordability, their own educational background, and for their moral character, teachers trained to read, write, and perform simple math. In the 1900s, colleges and universities started studying education systems, and teacher trainings were added to many high school curriculums. After the Second World War, a formation of a number of emergency teacher colleges ran one-year training courses. Later, colleges' two-year programs turned into four-year programs and specific further degrees, and more professional teacher trainings were required. Today, teacher trainings are more extensive in the specific courses required in school programs. Depending on whether a teacher wants to become an elementary school teacher or a secondary teacher, a teacher needs a specialty in their subject area and a major in the program of study in the teacher preparation. Teachers are also required to do student teaching internships, and after completing training, tests are given and required to pass in order to become a teacher.
While professional qualifications are regarded for professional reasons like doctorates and etc., teacher education and training favor bachelor's degrees with teaching content emphasizing skills over theory. Back in 1915, teachers had to meet some different qualifications and follow certain rules. For example, teachers were not allowed to marry during the term of their contract and were not allowed to loiter in ice cream stores. What employers look for today when hiring teachers is how engaged the students are when they teach, if they are presentable, they start on time, and obviously that they have all the proper documentation to teach. For example, to get your 5-year teaching certificate, you must complete a teacher prep program, complete 6 credits within the past 5 years, and taken the Praxis 2 tests. Along with proper documentation, employers also look for these attributes: a sense of fairness, preparedness, and how future teachers can connect with their potential students. Future teachers also need to be aware of what not to do. Future teachers need to make sure that they have the highest privacy settings on any social network, and they should be truthful about any past grievances that may come up in a background check.
Horace Mann was a reformer who provided public schools for all kinds of kids, no matter their social standings, race, or religion. Mann's goal was to get better teachers, but now with more schools there is a bigger demand for any teachers at all. The proposed solution was women. In the 1840s, common schools reformers prepared women due to the fact that they could pay them a third of what they pay a man. In 1838, Massachusetts created a movement to advance teacher education. This, however, short-lived, and with reformists pushing for teacher training to become a graded degree, and training moved to colleges and universities. The amount of impact the normal schools had were huge. States noticed the need to have teachers train. Training was now required. By the 20th century, almost 3/4 of teachers were women, and with horrible work conditions and horrible pay, it was only a matter of time before they rebelled. The bigger cities became centers for teacher organizations, and with time they grew into unions. Two of the biggest unions are the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers, which played a role in standardizing training and to improve pay and benefits for teachers. John Dewey, a 20th century philosopher, introduced the progressive education movement, which gave education freedom to teachers and students. The standard movement takes many forms of teacher training and wanting teachers to be tied to how their students do. The standard movement wanted students to have a better general knowledge base.
In the 1800s, most teachers were men. They were career schoolmasters, or in rural areas, they were businessmen and farmers from the community. A small percentage of teachers were women, and they were held to strict standards. As the need for teachers grew, and as men were deciding to pursue other professions, women became the dominant group of educators. In the early 1900s, most schools were one-room schoolhouses, housing students until the age of 18. Later in the century, as more students required an education, schools with multiple rooms were built. Most classrooms today look vastly different than in the 1800s. Students come from a variety of countries, cultures, abilities, and ethnicities. Teachers are required to have a skill set that's much more complex than the teacher in the 1800s. Teacher education has evolved to reflect these newly arising needs.
Troops to Teachers program was designed to help military personnel become teachers in the United States. It is funded by the DoD and eligibility is set by the federal legislation. Both the national office and the state offices work together to help get the military personnel certified for education. Different ways of becoming a teacher are decided by individual states. Mostly, it is when an individual already has a degree in a certain area. The states allow them to get certified and they do not have to go back to school to gain education certification. As of 2010, 48 states and in Washington, D.C., reported to have some type of alternate route to becoming certified. These are our citations.